It started on a Thursday. A perfectly average, nothing to write home about Thursday. The sky was gray, the traffic was sluggish, and my biggest concern that morning had been whether or not I remembered to put the trash bins out. That kind of day. My wife, Lauren, had texted me a kiss emoji before she headed out. I sent back a thumbs up. We were married 8 years. No children. No pets. Just the routine rituals of two mid-30s professionals living in the quiet outer limbs of Chicago's western suburbs. She worked in PR for a boutique agency in the city. I ran operations for a distribution company near O'Hare. We had our rhythms. Wake, coffee, traffic, work, reheat leftovers, Netflix, bed, rinse, repeat. I didn't notice anything wrong until I found the receipt. It wasn't even hidden. It was tucked neatly into the console between the cup holders of Lauren's car, folded once, crisp like it had barely been touched. I wasn't snooping, not yet, anyway. I'd borrowed her car that morning because mine was low on gas and I was already running late. At a red light, I reached for a breath mint and found the slip of paper. Jewelry store. Dated 5 days ago. I remember this because 5 days ago, she told me she'd had a lunch meeting with a client across town. It was during work hours, and the store's address was nowhere near her office or the restaurant she mentioned. I checked. $3,412. 18. That was the first thing I saw. Then the store name, Fraser and Langston, a high-end place downtown. You don't just walk in there for a charm bracelet. I know that shop. We went there together once years ago when my cousin got engaged and asked for my help ring shopping. They had real stuff. Serious diamonds. Platinum settings. The kind of glass cases where the employees wear gloves and everything sparkles like it's under a microscope. The receipt didn't say what she bought. Just the amount. Just her name printed clearly under the cardholder line. I didn't confront her. Not then. Instead, I drove in silence. It was the strangest thing. My pulse didn't race. My breath didn't quicken. I just felt cold. Not fear cold, but blank. Numb. Like someone had switched my insides to neutral. I spent the whole day operating on autopilot, my hands doing the work while my thoughts refused to form a complete sentence. When I got home, Lauren was already there, barefoot, sipping wine, wearing one of those oversized sweaters that slid off one shoulder. The fire was going. She liked to light it even when the air didn't call for it, and jazz played low on the speakers. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and asked if I wanted to order Thai. I smiled back, said I was starving. We didn't talk about the receipt. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe she bought something for her sister. They were close. Or maybe a surprise gift for me. Anniversary was coming up in a few months, and we always joked about one-upping each other each year. But that hope didn't last long. The next day, I made an excuse to swing by Fraser and Langston. I'm picking up something for my wife, I said casually. She was in earlier this week. Thought I'd see if it's ready. The sales associate, a woman with dark red lipstick and a sleek black blazer, typed a few things into the computer. Then she looked up with a smile too practiced to be genuine. Oh yes, that was Lauren, right? Such a lovely choice. I remember. She spent nearly an hour picking the piece. I froze. Right, I said slowly. Remind me again what she picked out? I just want to make sure I'm not confusing it with something else. She turned the screen slightly toward me and tapped something. It was a paved diamond bracelet. White gold. Limited edition, actually. We only had one left. She made an excellent call. A bracelet, not a ring. Not an engagement ring for someone else. Not earrings for her sister. A bracelet. For herself. And I had never seen it. Not on her wrist at dinner. Not in her drawer. Not in the bathroom beside her other pieces. Nowhere. I left the store before I said something stupid. That night, I started paying attention. It's a strange thing, noticing your partner like a stranger for the first time. Lauren was still kind, still warm, still herself. But it was like watching a play you'd already seen but realizing there was a second script running underneath the one you knew. Her smiles were a little too quick. Her eyes darted more often when she spoke, and she laughed too hard at things that weren't really funny. She hadn't worn the bracelet. Not once. In the 3 days since I visited the store, I checked obsessively. In the mornings, when she left for work. At night, when she showered. She didn't wear it, and it wasn't among her visible jewelry. I began opening drawers. I checked the jewelry box in our bedroom. Nothing. Her side table. Her closet shelf. Then the bathroom cabinets. Still nothing. It was on the 4th night, after she'd fallen asleep on the couch watching reruns, that I went downstairs, and opened her gym bag. The zipper stuck for a moment, then gave way. Inside, nestled beneath a balled-up towel and a pair of running shoes, was a small black velvet pouch. Fraser and Langston. I held it in my palm like it might bite. Inside was the bracelet. Dainty but expensive, shimmering like something stolen from a movie set. It was beautiful. So beautiful it made my chest hurt. I stood there, in the kitchen under soft yellow light, feeling something twist deep in my stomach. Not rage. Not yet. Just the unmistakable awareness that a line had been crossed. Something about the secrecy, the price, the way she hid it. It reeked of intention. But it got worse. The next morning, Lauren took the gym bag with her to work. I watched her sling it over her shoulder, kiss me goodbye, and walk out the door with the bracelet she refused to wear in our home. I waited 15 minutes, then followed. She didn't go to work. Not immediately, at least. She drove downtown, parked in a structure near River North, entered a cafe, sat at a window seat with her coffee. Then he arrived. I didn't recognize him. Taller than me. Athletic build. Neat beard. Suit without a tie. They didn't kiss. Didn't touch. Just sat, laughed, leaned in. The bracelet sparkled under her sleeve when she lifted her cup. They talked for an hour. Then she walked with him to his car. He opened the door for her. She smiled, the same smile she gave me on our wedding day. She got in, and they drove off. I stood there on the opposite sidewalk, in the wind, under the city's gray mid-morning hush, realizing something that hit harder than betrayal ever could. She hadn't just lied. She had disappeared. Not physically, not yet, but piece by piece, week by week, until the version of Lauren I'd loved for nearly a decade had been replaced by a stranger in the same skin. And now I needed to find out why. I didn't follow the car. Somehow, the decision not to trail them came from a deeper place than reason. It was instinctual, like my mind knew I wasn't ready to see where they were going. Not yet. I just stood there, shoulders hunched against the wind, watching the taillights disappear into the arterial blur of downtown traffic. I walked back to my own car and sat there for a while, engine idling, numb. The bracelet had been a symbol, not just of extravagance or secrecy, but of something sacred being transferred to another realm, one where I no longer existed. She hadn't worn it for me, hadn't even wanted me to know about it, but she'd worn it for him. That meant something. That meant everything. The next week passed in a quiet fury. Lauren didn't change. She was still affectionate in the same measured ways. Still cooked on Tuesdays, still asked how my day was, still laughed at reruns of old comedies. She didn't seem guilty. That was what chilled me most, the casual, frictionless way she occupied our shared life. If she was hiding something, it wasn't weighing on her. So I kept playing my role. Husband. Observer. Ghost. She didn't know I had installed a second phone line, one that recorded every call. She didn't know I cloned her backup phone to track messages and browser history. And she didn't know I found her hidden key to a storage unit 2 suburbs over. That was where I went next. Unit 14C. West Grove Self-Storage. Thursday afternoon. It was a cold, hollow corridor of blue roll-up doors and motion-sensing lights. Her name was on the lease. I confirmed that before arriving. Listed as a secondary storage space for seasonal wardrobe items. That wasn't true. Inside was a separate version of Lauren. 3 pairs of heels I'd never seen before. A blazer too sharp for her office dress code. Makeup shades she never wore at home. Bold, crimson lips, and smoky eyes. A silk blouse that didn't belong to the wife I knew. It belonged to someone who needed to impress. Someone stepping into a different role. On the shelf above, a mirror, a compact, travel perfume, a slim laptop bag, hers. All neatly arranged. She had curated a version of herself that never came home with her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched her from our bed, her back turned, hair draped over her pillow, breathing slow and steady like she hadn't spent the day hiding a secret life inside a storage locker. I wondered how many versions of her were out there. How many I'd never met. By morning, I was done waiting. I called Fraser and Langston again, this time from a different number, using a voice modulation app. I pretended to be an insurance adjuster, claimed the bracelet was stolen during a burglary, and asked for purchase verification. The associate on the line was all too helpful. Of course, sir. One moment. Yes, purchased last week. White gold paved diamond bracelet. Charged to Lauren Mathis. She selected the piece herself after trying several options. Very particular. She seemed emotionally moved. Told us it was a gift to Mark. Her voice trailed. To mark what? I asked, heart pounding. She said it was to mark the beginning of something new. A clean break. That's what she told us. A clean break. I ended the call before she could say anything else. That same day, I watched Lauren leave for work and checked the GPS tag I'd placed in the lining of her gym bag. She wasn't heading to the office. She took a detour through Elmhurst, stopped at a modest two-story home with white shutters and a red front door. I stayed a block away and watched from inside my car as she stood on the porch and rang the bell. He answered. The man from the cafe. This time, there was no distance between them. He kissed her on the cheek, soft, intimate, familiar, and stepped aside to let her in. She glanced once down the street, not searching for me, but for anyone. Her guard was up, but she didn't see me. She disappeared inside. I didn't wait. I walked to the house like I belonged on that block, knocked on the neighbor's door, and pretended I was a delivery driver with a lost address. I just needed a look at the mailbox, something with a name. Reynolds was etched in faded gold letters across the metal. That night, while Lauren was in the shower, I opened her purse. The key to the storage unit was gone, meaning she'd been there that day. I checked her phone. Nothing suspicious. No messages. No calls. She was too careful. But then, buried beneath her receipt folder, I found a tiny envelope. It had no label, but inside was a Polaroid, a candid shot of her and Reynolds, arms around each other in what looked like a park picnic. Her eyes were closed, head on his shoulder. Her smile was different in that photo. Bigger, less contained, like she hadn't smiled in years. Behind the Polaroid was a sticky note. 2 words. Soon. Promise. I replaced everything exactly as I found it. That night, she curled against me in bed, whispered goodnight, kissed my shoulder. Her fingers found mine in the dark. I'm lucky to have you, she murmured. I didn't respond. Because the thing was, I already had the rest of the puzzle. I didn't need her to confess. I didn't need a confrontation. What I needed was a plan. And the next morning, I started writing it. First, I contacted a friend of mine, Max, who worked cybersecurity for a law firm downtown. I didn't tell him everything, just that I needed help recovering deleted text messages and metadata from a cloned phone. He agreed. Second, I scheduled a consultation with a private investigator, the kind who works in cash and doesn't ask too many questions. If Lauren was planning a clean break, I wanted to know how far along the plan was, financially, logistically, emotionally. Third, I began assembling a digital dossier. Photos, bank activity, calendar inconsistencies, a copy of the receipt, everything. And then, I bought her a gift. A necklace. Nothing flashy. Sterling silver with a small sapphire pendant. I left it on her pillow with a note, just because. For the woman I love. She squealed when she saw it that night. Jumped into my arms. Said no one had ever surprised her like that. Her eyes sparkled, maybe from guilt, maybe gratitude, maybe both. That night, she wore it to bed. And in the morning, she was gone before I woke. She left a sticky note on the counter. Early meeting. Love you. But I didn't need a sticky note. Because 2 hours later, the private investigator texted me. Followed her from storage unit to Reynolds' house again. She stayed 2 hours. Left with a folder. Can't confirm contents, but looked like documents. Planning something. And then, surprise twist. She didn't go to work afterward. She went to your attorney's office. My breath caught. My attorney. A clean break. She was leaving me. That was the only conclusion that made sense. A visit to my attorney, someone I'd introduced her to during our estate planning a year prior, meant she wasn't just dreaming of a clean break. She was calculating one, preparing it like a quiet heist. And I was the vault. I didn't tell her I knew. I didn't call the office to demand answers or confront the attorney I now saw as a traitor. Instead, I let the knowledge sit with me like a stone in the gut. I wanted to see how far she'd go before she said something. What her version of goodbye would look like. She was oddly affectionate that weekend. Light touches, lingering kisses. She laughed too easily, like someone who'd already stepped out of a burning house and now had the distance to pretend the fire was just a warm glow behind them. But her eyes, they flickered, especially when I caught her looking at me too long. Sunday evening, we hosted her sister and brother-in-law for dinner. I watched her glide through our kitchen like a woman in full command of her world, wine in hand, bare feet on hardwood, humming as she spooned garlic butter over roasted fish. The bracelet wasn't on her wrist. She'd hidden it again. After they left, she sat beside me on the couch, pulled a throw blanket over our laps, and rested her head on my shoulder. "You've been quiet," she said softly. "Just tired," I replied. She nodded. "You've been so good to me." I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't want her to lie again. We watched half an episode of something forgettable before she kissed my cheek and went to bed early. I stayed up until well after midnight, staring into the flickering blue haze of the television, trying to feel anything but hollow. The images on the screen blurred, and in my mind, I replayed every recent moment. Her outfits, the calls, the makeup in the storage unit, the unfamiliar shoes. Each detail painted a picture, and it wasn't abstract. It was a portrait of someone who had already emotionally vacated the marriage. Monday morning, the PI emailed me 3 photos. One showed Lauren walking up to Reynolds's door holding what looked like a leather planner. The second, taken through a telephoto lens from a parked car, showed them at the window. She was smiling. His hand rested on her lower back. The third image struck me deepest. They were standing in what looked like his kitchen, reviewing papers, laughing over something in the folder she carried. That same folder was now missing from our home office. That evening, while she was in the shower, I checked. Her files were reorganized. The drawer where we stored tax documents, savings accounts, insurance policies, everything had been rifled through. Some folders gone entirely. A small USB drive that used to sit on her side of the desk was no longer there. She was collecting assets, planning for the split like a general mapping terrain before the first cannon shot. I stared at the empty drawer and, for a moment, something in me wavered. A pulse of grief. Not for her betrayal. I'd already processed that. But for the version of me who still wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding. That man was gone now. The next day, I played my final card. I met Max, my cybersecurity friend, in a quiet corner booth at a brewery we used to frequent after college. Lauren deleted her messages. I told him. Everything. Her second phone, wiped clean. "Doesn't mean they're gone," he replied. "She's not a tech pro. People don't realize what metadata sticks around." He handed me a small black drive. "This has everything I could recover from the clone: text logs, voice recordings, app history, location metadata." I filtered out the junk. "Thanks, Max. You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just tired of being the last to know." Back at home, I waited until midnight. Lauren was fast asleep, her breath steady and rhythmic. I slipped into the study, plugged in the drive, and opened the folder labeled recovered_texts. The first few messages were innocuous. Old group chats, reminders to herself, grocery lists. Then I found them. The first message to Reynolds was dated 3 months ago. "Lauren, you make it so easy to forget the rules." Reynolds, "Because I don't play by them." Weeks of flirtation followed. Then innuendo. Then outright admissions. I read everything, letting each line cauterize something raw in me. "Lauren, I can't keep pretending everything's fine at home." Reynolds, "Then stop. Come with me. Let's build something new." Lauren, "I've started making the moves. I talked to his attorney today. He doesn't know." Reynolds, "That's my girl. When it's done, I'll get you out of there. Promise." I closed the laptop slowly, letting the silence fill the room like smoke. She wasn't just planning to leave. She was preparing to clean me out. Legally, financially, and if the messages were to be believed, emotionally, too. She wanted me emptied like a bank account. But what they didn't know was that I'd already frozen the accounts. Quietly, methodically, I had contacted a second lawyer, someone Lauren didn't know, and started the process of drafting protections. The house was under my name alone. The prenuptial agreement was airtight. She thought she was walking away with a fresh start. But I was setting the trap. The next morning, I kissed her cheek goodbye as she left for work. "You're up early," she said. "Just finishing a few things." "That surprise trip still happening?" she asked with a smile. I had told her the week before that my company might send me out for a conference. "Thursday, right?" "Yeah, Thursday morning." "Well, I'll miss you," she said, brushing her fingers through my hair. "You'll call." Of course. But she wouldn't answer. Because Thursday, everything would change. That evening, while she was out on one of her gym nights, or so she said, I drove to the storage unit and cleaned it out. I took everything. The makeup, the shoes, the laptop, the backup folders. I boxed them neatly, labeled the package, and stored it in my garage. Let her wonder. Wednesday night, I watched her sleep beside me, the necklace I'd given her weeks ago glinting faintly in the moonlight. I thought about all the things I would say, the accusations I could hurl, the tears she might fake. But I didn't want tears. I wanted silence. And I would get it. The next morning, I left for the airport with a packed bag and a printed itinerary to a fictional conference. I kissed her one last time on the porch. She waved from the doorway. And as soon as she disappeared inside, I drove away. But not to the airport. I had another stop. The law office. My new attorney had the documents ready. Emergency asset protection. Temporary injunctions. Notification of marital breach. She would receive them before dinner. I made one last call to the private investigator. Is he at the house? Yes. Arrived half an hour ago. Brought wine. Same guy. Stay on them. Document everything. I'll call you after the papers are delivered. There was a long pause. What's your endgame here? He finally asked. I'm giving her what she wanted. A divorce? I smiled faintly. No. A clean break. I didn't go home that night. I parked 2 blocks away and watched. It was surreal seeing it all unfold from outside my own life. Like watching a stage play where I once held the lead role, but now sat silent in the crowd, uninvited. My house stood as a silhouette, a familiar shape now foreign, lit warmly from within, as though it hadn't become the staging ground for betrayal. At 6:27 p.m., the courier arrived. I recognized him from the law office. Young, clean-cut, punctual. He carried a sealed envelope with the weight of a guillotine in his grip. He walked up the path, rang the bell, and handed Lauren the package. I couldn't see her expression from this distance, but I imagined the surprise tightening her brow, the confusion dancing across her lips. She closed the door. For 5 minutes, nothing. Then the lights in the study flicked on. She would have read the cover letter first. A simple summary of what was enclosed. A notice of discovery. Details of surveillance. Photographic evidence. Documentation of all bank activity. A preliminary freeze on shared assets. Legal notice of spousal misconduct. And a request to vacate the property within 72 hours. The legal team had done their work well. At 6:46 p.m., the study lights went off. 2 minutes later, he arrived. Reynolds. He walked up the same path, carrying a bottle of wine and a brown paper bag, probably Thai food from the place she liked. It struck me how ordinary he looked. Not dangerous. Not extraordinary. Just a man with someone else's wife on his mind. Lauren opened the door. There was no kiss this time. No smile. Just a quick exchange, a shift in body language. They walked into the living room, and I saw them through the gap in the curtains, barely lit, standing apart, her arms crossed, his hand halfway raised as if frozen mid-explanation. She was telling him. Or trying to. I could almost hear it. Her voice low, tight with panic. His responses sharp, rising in volume. I imagined her showing him the documents. Maybe the photos. Maybe the copy of the text thread I had printed and enclosed, the one where they plotted the end of our marriage like 2 lovers scripting a fantasy. At 7:04, Reynolds stormed out. He didn't slam the door. It was worse than that. He shut it gently, like someone trying to contain the explosion. He stood outside on the porch, checked his phone, paced twice, then walked to his car and drove off without looking back. Lauren didn't come out after him. Instead, the house remained lit but motionless. I waited another 20 minutes before driving away. I didn't need to see her cry. I didn't need to see her call my name into empty rooms. I had already seen everything I needed to see. She hadn't just lost me. She'd lost the version of herself she'd carefully curated for this secret second life. And now the walls were closing in. I stayed at a hotel that night. Nothing fancy, just a sterile mid-range suite with cold air and stiff pillows. I didn't sleep much. Just stared at the ceiling and let the hours pass like freight cars. My phone remained silent. No calls. No messages. No desperate apologies or midnight confessions. In the morning, I received a single text from Lauren. We need to talk. Please. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my attorney. Record of contact, I noted. Then I silenced the phone and returned to the timeline I'd prepared. Friday morning, she would receive the locksmith notice. Friday evening, the private investigator would deliver a second set of documents, ones Reynolds hadn't seen yet. These included details about the funds she'd moved discreetly into a new joint account she'd opened with him, an account I had already closed. The last deposit had bounced. Saturday morning, movers were scheduled to arrive. Hired by me, paid in full, tasked with boxing her things and delivering them to a storage unit under her name. the same one she once used to hide a different self. Sunday, the locks would be changed. By Monday, she would no longer have access to the house. And through it all, I remained quiet. Not out of fear, not even from hurt anymore, but because I understood something now. Silence was the sharpest blade I had. No shouting match, no confrontation, no scene could cut as deep as being erased, methodically, decisively, and with finality. I spent most of Friday in a cafe near the lake, sipping bitter coffee and watching the waves slap against the shore. There was something therapeutic about the cold, like it had the power to draw the poison from my chest. At 3:12 p.m., she called. I didn't answer. At 3:19, she left a voicemail. I don't know what you think you know, but please just talk to me. We made mistakes, yes, but it's not what you think. I need to explain. You deserve that much. She sounded desperate. It almost worked. But then I remembered the look on her face in the Polaroid. That glow, that smile, that complete absence of guilt or restraint. She hadn't made a mistake. She made a choice. That night, I returned to the house. She wasn't there. The car was gone. I knew she'd gone to him. Probably one last attempt to salvage whatever they thought they were building together. I walked through our home, my home, slowly. Each room felt like a theater set. Her things remained untouched, unmoved, waiting to be escorted out by strangers. Her perfume lingered faintly in the bathroom. A forgotten blouse hung on the bedroom chair. Her voice, like an echo, seemed embedded in the walls. But the mask was gone now, and what remained was just a woman, flawed, afraid, and exposed. I found her bracelet in the drawer of her nightstand, still in its velvet pouch, still gleaming. I took it out, held it in the soft glow of the lamp, and studied the way the diamonds caught the light. It was beautiful, cold, intricate, just like the lie it came to represent. I walked to the fireplace, turned on the gas, and watched the flames flicker to life. Then I tossed the pouch in. For a moment, it refused to burn. Then the velvet caught, dark smoke rising, metal twisting. The diamonds turned black. I watched until the last spark died, and then I smiled. Saturday morning, the movers arrived precisely at 9 a.m. They worked quickly, no questions asked. Every box was labeled, taped, stacked. Everything of hers removed without incident. She showed up at 10:47. I was standing on the porch when she pulled up, hair a mess, eyes swollen. She stepped out of the car slowly, cautiously, as if unsure whether she'd be allowed near the house. Please, she said. I said nothing. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. It just happened. I was lonely. You were always working. I thought you didn't care anymore. I still didn't speak. She stepped closer. Say something, please. I'm sorry. I am. I was confused. I didn't know how to stop it. I waited a beat. Then finally, I said, it wasn't the cheating. Her eyes widened. It was the planning. The lies. The way you prepared to gut me while still kissing me goodnight. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. You already said everything you needed to say. To him. To yourself. To my lawyer. Her face crumpled. Don't do this, she whispered. Don't throw everything away. I'm not, I said calmly. I'm just giving you exactly what you wanted. I turned and walked back inside. Behind me, the movers continued loading. Lauren didn't follow. She stood at the edge of the porch, crying into her hands, while the life she had tried to build in secret collapsed behind her. And I stood in the doorway, silent, victorious. But then, just as I reached for the doorknob to close it behind me, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. One line of text. You think it's over, but it's not. I stared at it. My stomach turned. And in that moment, I realized I had missed something. The message haunted me. You think it's over, but it's not. I stared at the screen, its glow harsh in the late morning light. The number was unfamiliar, no name attached, but something about it felt calculated. Not impulsive, not emotional. Someone had waited, bided time until the right moment to send that single line. The words weren't angry. They were confident. I paced the living room, its emptiness more apparent now without her things. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It buzzed, electric with questions. I rechecked the text, ran a search on the number. Nothing. Burner. Disconnected before I could call back. She hadn't sent it. That much I was sure of. She was still outside when it arrived. Still sobbing in the driveway, trying to reason with the movers, begging one of them to let her just grab one thing. I watched from the upstairs window, unseen, as they politely refused. They had their instructions. If she had sent the message, it would have been followed by another. A call. A knock. But none came. I checked her devices. Still cloned. Still silent. I pulled up the PI's folder again, flipping through the photos of Reynolds. His home. His car. I'd already seen it all, or so I thought. But the text, it made me go back. Frame by frame. Looking for something I might have missed. And then I found it. An image from 2 weeks earlier, Lauren and Reynolds seated at a cafe, his hand on hers. Her other hand held a folder. The same folder I'd seen at our house. The one she brought to his place. It wasn't the folder that caught my attention this time. It was the laptop beside it. A matte gray model with a visible sticker, partially covered, but enough to read a company logo. Banyan Partners. I knew that name. Not from Lauren's world, but from mine. Banyan Partners was one of our logistics firm's newest clients. We'd signed a non-disclosure agreement during early tech integration. They were private, niche, and very selective. I'd met one of their senior managers just 3 months earlier, a man named Carter Reynolds. My stomach dropped. I hadn't connected the name before. Reynolds. Of course. It wasn't just personal. It was business. I pulled up the records from the office. Client contact logs. Meeting summaries. I found the entry. Carter Reynolds. Senior strategist. Oversaw data coordination. Visited our offices twice. Had a brief lunch meeting with our analytics team. And apparently, somewhere in that process, he met Lauren. She'd come by the office once that week. Said she was in the area. Dropped off lunch. Introduced herself to a few of my coworkers, including, it now seemed, Reynolds. The betrayal hadn't started from loneliness. It had started from access. She used our firm to find him. Used me. I slammed the laptop shut, blood rushing to my temples. It had always been worse than I imagined. Not just emotional. Not even just physical. Strategic. And I still didn't know the full extent. I called Max. I need one more thing. Tell me, can you cross-reference Reynolds' work log with the times Lauren visited my office? Silence. Then, yeah, give me an hour. I waited. Walked the length of the hallway a dozen times. Thought of every interaction. Every moment that suddenly held a different shape now. The calls. The late nights. The times she pushed me to take certain contracts. Encouraged me to accept Banyan's offer quickly. She said it was smart money. That they had long-term potential. Had she been playing both sides from the beginning? Max called back. She visited your office 4 times during the contract process. Each visit overlapped with Reynolds' meetings. And I traced the IP from her burner phone. Guess what? What? She accessed internal Banyan docs. Through a linked VPN. Not recently, but 6 weeks ago. She accessed his files. No, she accessed yours. The breath left my lungs. She wasn't just sleeping with him, Max continued. She was feeding him data. Trade routes. Contract specs. Projections. My projections. She'd given him intel. Maybe to help him climb internally. Maybe as part of some twisted pact between lovers. Or maybe she planned to use it as leverage in the divorce, to claim business relevance. Shared insight. Grounds for a bigger financial claim. I would have never known if I hadn't seen that sticker in the photo. That was the real betrayal. Not her body. Not her lies. But the theft of trust so fundamental, it undercut everything I'd built. She hadn't just tried to break my heart. She'd tried to compromise my legacy. I contacted my attorney. Send the new motion. Include the VPN breach. She paused. Do you want to press charges? I didn't answer immediately. I thought of her smile. The one I fell for. The one that made me believe in things like forever. And then I thought of that folder in his kitchen. My data inside it. My life, sliced and cataloged. Yes, I said. Understood. She was served again 3 days later. This time, the letter included words like malfeasance, unauthorized access, and contractual sabotage. She didn't show up at the house again. Didn't call. Didn't text. It all went quiet. Even the PI confirmed Reynolds had gone dark. His house empty, his office activity suspended. Word spread that he'd taken a leave of absence from Banyan. I suspected he'd bolted the moment the heat arrived. Cowards always do. I expected Lauren to reach out eventually. To scream. To beg. To twist the truth into some grotesque shape and try to claim victimhood. But she didn't. She vanished. And in her absence, the noise inside my head finally died down. A week passed. Then 2. And then, one rainy afternoon, a small box arrived by courier. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. No note. No message. Just a device. I plugged it in. Videos. Dozens. Clips of her and Reynolds. Some intimate. Some casual. But all clearly filmed without her knowledge. Hidden camera angles. Private moments. My skin went cold. Someone had recorded them. Then sent the evidence to me. I didn't need to guess who. Reynolds. Or someone connected to him. Maybe as insurance. Maybe as revenge. Maybe just to bury her completely. I ejected the drive. I didn't need to watch more. I'd seen enough betrayal to last a lifetime. The house is quiet now. Her scent is gone. Her shadow no longer clings to the corners. I replaced the photos. Repainted the bedroom. Changed the sheets. I did it not out of spite, but as an act of purification. Of reclaiming. Some nights, I still wonder what might have happened if I'd never seen the receipt. If I'd never borrowed her car. If I hadn't picked up that slip of paper tucked in the console. Maybe I'd still be living in ignorance. Still holding her hand while she sharpened the knife behind my back. But the truth came wrapped in velvet. In diamonds. In a lie so polished it almost glowed. The jeweler thanked her for choosing the piece. And she did. She chose the piece. She chose to replace her rings. Not because they were stolen, but because the life they symbolized no longer fit her hand. So I gave her what she wanted. An ending. But not the one she scripted. Not the one with clean escapes and new beginnings. No. I burned the bridge. I salted the ground. And I walked away, not broken, but free.